See, this is one of the reasons why it is so important when there is an outrage cycle on social media, whatever the outrage cycle du jour is, it is so important to go and hear whatever it is so-and-so said straight from their mouth. Go and watch and listen to their words for yourself. Because if you rely on the internet to tell you what somebody said, it is a game of telephone. So often you find that whoever it is telling you why they're so outraged about whatever it is so-and-so said, when you actually go and hear it from so-and-so's mouth, there is a difference between what was said and what was heard. And if you need an example right now in real time, look no further than how mad people are getting at Jayda Wayda for what she said. Because here's actually what she said. Let's watch it together. Let's watch and listen to it together, because here's what Jayda Wayda said.
I commend parents that drop their kids off to school and then go to a job. If I had to get myself ready and make sure my child is ready and looks presentable every day, I would literally get fired from my job. You are a parent that does both. I commend you. I pay you homage. I give you your flowers, because I literally could never. When I have appointments like early in the morning, I have to go home and dedicate a whole time to just get myself ready, because it's no such thing as getting me and Lawyer ready. It's like one or the other.
And here is what people heard.
I could never work a 9 to 5 like you. I am so much better than y'all. Me, work a 9 to 5, work for somebody else, let somebody else set my schedule? Immediately, no.
The projection that I have been seeing over the past 24 hours, let's talk about it, because what people are hearing is very indicative of their own projections, especially when it comes to their projections about working moms. Aloha, beautiful humans. Welcome to my channel. If you are new here, welcome back if we've been locked in. My name is Sasha, and today we are talking about the controversy surrounding Jayda Wayda, more specifically, the fairly, in my personal opinion, benign, a little out of touch, yes, and we'll get to that a little bit later in the video, but for the most part, it was a very benign comment about how she basically could not see herself getting her son ready for school, then getting herself ready for work, and then going to work. That's just not something she can see herself doing. And that is the reality for many women, because stay-at-home moms are a thing. Now, Jayda Wayda, more specifically, she's not a stay-at-home mom per se. Jayda Wayda is a content creator, an influencer. She's had a hair business, I think, since she was 16 or 17 years old. So she has been an entrepreneur who has been on her grind since a very young age, and she's doing well for herself. She also is the mother to one of Lil Baby. He is a rapper. She's also the mother to his youngest child. I believe her son is his youngest child, but you never know with these rappers, so. Am I wrong? Don't drag me, okay? Am I wrong? When it comes to these rappers, they be having a football team of kids with as many baby mothers. I can't keep up. But anyways, Jayda Wayda, in her own right, she is a very successful woman. And like I said, she is an entrepreneur. She is a content creator. She is an influencer. She is doing very well for herself. I believe she's only 27 or 28 years old. So for a young woman, she's fairly accomplished. She's been very successful in all of her endeavors. Her success, in part, is why I feel her comment was received so poorly. And I won't even say her success so much as, have y'all noticed that two people can say the same exact thing, but if one person says it, people are going to respond completely different in comparison to another person. I just feel, even though I don't follow her that closely, I don't really know her that well. I'm not a stan of hers. I'm a casual observer because, you know, I be in these streets. I be knowing everything, a little bit of everything, sprinkle, sprinkle. I be knowing things, okay? So I don't really keep up with her a lot, but I just noticed that every single time she is in the public eye, the public consciousness, or we're having a conversation about her, something she said, something she did, it's often very negative, and it just seems that a lot of people do not like her for whatever reason. And I think if I'm being totally honest, it is because even though she belongs to a certain aesthetic, this kind of hood rich rapper girlfriend, she is not what most people would regard as ghetto. You know, you don't see her on the internet popping off. I guess you could say that she is the direct contrast to Ari. And Ari is G Herbo's baby mama. He is a rapper. I don't know the last time he put something out, but I don't really be listening to his music like that. But anyways, Ari and Jayda fall into the same category of hood rich, baby mama, entrepreneur, influencer, content creator. They fall into that same aesthetic. However, I noticed that people don't necessarily have as much smoke for Ari in comparison to the smoke and kind of vitriol they have for Jayda. And I think it is because Jayda carries herself much different. She kind of carries herself as kind of like, in my personal opinion, a Black American princess. Like, she's very cute. She's very just into her skincare and her treatments and her hair. You know, she is a girly girl. And I think that aesthetic, that kind of, you know, she kind of talks like a valley girl. I think that really irritates people. And I honestly think it irritates people because they only have this very narrow image and stereotype of what Black women who belong to that aesthetic, what they are supposed to act like. And when a lot of people cannot relate to someone in terms of behavior or access or aesthetic or education, when they don't know where to put you, and when you don't fall neatly into the categories and boxes that they've created for you in their mind, they get very weird towards you. And I think Jayda falls into that box for people. Now, does she say some things that are out of touch? Yes. However, when you think about it, like I said, she's very young. She's only 27 or 28 years old. I don't believe she's gone to college or even had a job, has ever worked a 9 to 5. She's likely never done an internship. She is not living the life a lot of women are living, but more specifically, she is not living the life most working moms are living. So to hear somebody make that type of comment, I can see how it is off-putting. I can also see how it is out of touch. However, to get angry about it and call her out and say she is shaming working moms, I do not agree with that at all. That is not what she said. That is what you heard. And that is what many people heard who are dragging her because they are insecure about their own lives. They are insecure about their own decisions, and maybe they feel a little bit of mom guilt. When it comes to this mom guilt, it's nothing new. Even this tension between working moms and stay-at-home moms, or at the very least moms who have a little bit more control over their schedules because they are, you know, entrepreneurs or they don't work a traditional line of work. There is this tension between working moms and stay-at-home moms and the moms who kind of fall somewhere in the middle to fill that gap. The reason why I'm very intentional to say moms who fall in the middle is because I personally view content creation and influencing as real work. It is a profession. However, a lot of people do not view that as real work. And so when you think about women who are content creators, who are influencers, who that is their full-time job, they fill that gap. They fall in between that gap of stay-at-home moms because a lot of people don't view content creation as real work, so they would regard those women as stay-at-home moms. However, they are working just in a non-traditional capacity. And when you have moms who are able to stay at home like that, in comparison to moms who have to leave the home to work, who have to drop their kids off at school or daycare and cannot be with them during the day or homeschool them, there is some tension there. It's the mommy wars, and I hate it because even though I'm not a mom, it makes me so sad that women are fighting against one another instead of fighting the system that makes it so many families, so many moms are not able to stay at home with their children, even though that is what they would like to do, or they don't have the flexibility to do so the way you would if you were a mom working a non-traditional job, or if you were a mom who was working a non-traditional role somewhere in that gap of entrepreneur or working mom. You just work remotely or have more flexibility in your work schedule. Even though I'm not a mom, I completely understand that tension because the vast majority of my friends are moms. I think I'm the only one in my group of friends. Yeah, in all of my friend groups, actually, now that I think about it, I'm the only one who is child-free. And so having conversations with my girlfriends, there are some who are very fulfilled in what they do. They love their careers. They are working women. They are trying to climb that corporate ladder and carve out legacies for themselves in their fields, and more power to them. That doesn't diminish them wanting to have a career based off of the education they've received. That doesn't diminish them as mothers at all. Then you have women who are in the workforce only because we have created an economy where it's just very challenging. It's not impossible, but it is very challenging to subsist on one income, depending on where you live, if you're in the city or if you're in a more rural area or if you're like in the suburbs. And it's not just where you live, but also how many children you have. And then you also have to think about the lifestyle that you're living. You know, the lifestyle creep. When you make more money, it becomes a little bit more challenging for you to think about scaling back or where you could cut costs in order to be able to stay at home as a mom. But here's the thing that I think we as women know intellectually, but sometimes fall victim to because the patriarchy is everywhere. No decision is better than the other. If you are a woman who is intent on keeping your career and working hard and trying to climb up the corporate ladder, that's fine. If you are a woman who is simply in the workforce because you need to be able to put food on the table, and the second you are able to leave, your husband gets a better job or you find yourself in a better position or you can take an opportunity elsewhere that allows you to be at home more, that's wonderful. If you are a stay-at-home wife and mom and you feel your calling is to stay at home and homeschool your children and raise your children, all of these choices are amazing. All of these choices, all of these decisions you are making as a mom, as a woman, are just as important, just as valid, just as meaningful as anyone else's choices. And that's the thing that we have to remember, because feminism, if you believe in feminism, at the end of the day, feminism is about choice. You as a woman have to make the choice that is best for you. You have to make the choice that is best for your family and your current situation in this moment. And the key is not to compare yourself to anyone else. And I think that's where people are falling short in their own projection and their anger and hearing what they want to hear. Because if you are confident, grounded, and rooted in yourself and the choices that you are making, the next mom's choice, the next woman's choice is not going to bother you. It's not going to feel like a judgment. It's not going to feel like an indictment on the decision that you're making. But if you have all of this mom guilt, that is absolutely a tool of the patriarchy, because men, the patriarchy, capitalism, have created an environment that while they say we think women should be in the home, they have not created an environment where it is possible for women to be in the home rearing their children and for the home to be successful and financially stable. So we are all making decisions that we have to at the end of the day to keep a roof over our heads and provide our children with the best quality of life that we owe them for bringing them into this world. And if that decision for your family means you as a mom stay at home, then you stay at home. If that decision means you as a mom continue to work in corporate or any environment, blue collar, white collar work, untraditional work, content creation, influencing, whatever decision you are making, it has to be a decision that makes sense for you and your family. And you don't need to justify it or explain it to anyone else. And I think Jayda was just sitting there. It didn't seem to me like she was putting down working moms at all. She said, I give y'all your props. I admire you. Shout out to the moms who do this. Because even me, in my capacity as someone who works and does content creation, it's freaking hard. Getting myself up and ready for the day is a 45-minute to an hour long process. I could not see myself. I would really struggle to do this with a child. And I'm a morning person. Once I'm up, okay? I'm singing, I'm a morning person. Catch me at 1 p.m., 2 p.m. It's another story entirely. I am not an afternoon girly, but for the most part, in the mornings, I'm up, I'm going, but I can't fathom having to do this with a child. You know, it is hard. It is hard. I'm one of 7. Growing up in my household, getting ready in the mornings was a near 2-hour long process. My mom was an ICU nurse and she worked 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. So very often it was my dad who was wrangling us, trying to get us all ready. And by the time my younger siblings kind of hit elementary age, they were going to private school. And my mom, she would get home early enough to make sure they were ready and then drive them to school. They weren't taking the bus like me, the sister before me, and the sister after me. And then my brother, I think he did half and half. He spent most of his education though in public school, in private school. So my parents were driving him. But for the most part, getting us ready in the mornings was a project. I should actually do a video with my parents. Just like, let me know if you would be interested in that. A video of just my parents talking about what it was like raising 7 children. Like, it's honestly insane. I can't even fathom having one. And my parents had 7. Wild. But anyways, so Jayda seemed like very like, I don't know how y'all do this because it's not her reality. Me, who doesn't have any children, is working full-time and is hoping to make the shift to full-time content creation, trying to get a child up first thing in the morning, getting them ready, getting myself ready, taking them to school or making sure they get on the bus, giving them breakfast, packing their bag, getting them off to school, and then getting myself to work. I easily see that for me, it would honestly be a 2-hour process. And more power to the parents who do this. I admire y'all. At the same time, that's what you sign up for when you choose to become a parent. And I think if we're being honest here, I do think there is some sort of bitterness because not only are you not going to experience any frustration, you're not going to be projecting or receiving anything Jayda said negatively if you are confident and grounded and rooted in your decisions. You're also not going to feel that way if you are comfortable, grounded, and rooted in motherhood. From the outside looking in, this is not to say that moms don't have bad days, but there are some women who seem to have children not because they genuinely desired bringing a child into this world, growing their family, and care about ushering this person from being a baby to essentially adulthood. It's almost like they had children and didn't realize what would come with it, and they find a lot of frustration and anger with being parents and anybody else who looks like they're having an easier time of parenthood, especially motherhood, when we have been sold this message consistently that motherhood is straight up ghetto. Like there's just so many extremes when it comes to motherhood. It's either the most rewarding thing ever or it's the most horrible thing ever. You know, people talk about motherhood in these absolute black and white extreme terms. And so when you are on social media and when it seems like a lot of women are having motherhood easy and you're struggling because you're in the trenches of motherhood, and you see a woman with options, you see a woman who can get her child ready for school, drop them off or make sure they get on the bus, come back home, relax, maybe take a nap, maybe go to the gym, wake up, shower, get ready for the day. When they have that time, if you don't have that time or you're not having that experience with motherhood, it can make you really angry. And that's honestly what I saw in a lot of the responses of people who were being really hostile and negative towards Jayda Wayda for no reason. It's like, I understand you are having a negative experience with motherhood, or motherhood is very challenging. And parenthood nowadays, I imagine it's so much harder. There is no community. The village is dwindling. Now, some of y'all make it that way for yourselves because you are not somebody people want to be in community with. Don't shoot the messenger. Don't shoot the messenger. You know the truth, okay? Are you one of those people, your child is a little demon and nobody can correct your child? Nobody can tell your child nothing. You be arguing with the teacher when the teacher tells you, hey, your kid is cutting up. If that's you, you make it very hard for not only someone to be in community with, but then to extend that community to your child. So just be honest here. I'm just saying motherhood is challenging in and of itself, but some of y'all make it more challenging by not being people others want to be in community with. Let's be honest. But yeah, so all of this to say that I think just some people, when you are not experiencing motherhood the way you want, or someone looks like they're having it easier than you, and this is not what you thought you signed up for when you became a mom, or your life circumstance has changed. You know, you thought you were going to be a stay-at-home mom, and then you and your child's father, your husband, y'all divorced, or they had to be the stay-at-home parent, or your personal income was too much to let go. You know, there's a myriad of reasons, right? There are a myriad of reasons why women are experiencing motherhood the way they are. However, that has nothing to do with Jayda Wayda. And it has nothing to do with Jayda Wayda and her son's morning routine. And if you want a morning routine like that, baby girl, instead of being mad at Jayda Wayda, What are you gonna do to change your situation and to make a better situation? I think sometimes we become victims of our own life and what we perceive to be our circumstances, but nothing is permanent. The same way you got yourself into a certain situation, you can get yourself out of that situation. I mean, children are permanent, so you can't go back to not having kids. And that's really why I, at my big grown age, am still child-free. Because if it's not an enthusiastic, yes, I'm ready to change my life forever and ever and ever, it's going to be a no for me. And I don't know if some people don't think about that, right? Like, motherhood changes everything. And if you're not ready for everything or even some things to change, maybe reconsider, although it's kind of too late. But for the people who don't have children, just think about it. Just think about it. But anyway, motherhood is challenging. We all choose our hard. Working is hard. Being in corporate America is hard. Having a 9-to-5, blue collar work, white collar work, commuting, everything that comes with working, being a working mom is hard. Being a stay-at-home mom is hard. We all choose our hard. And somebody else's hard does not invalidate or make our hard any more or less easy. And I think that's why so many people were quick to dismiss Jayda Wayda's comments, because we look at her hard, not knowing what her hard is. We look at her life thinking it's easy in comparison to our hard, but we don't know what her life is like. She is an entrepreneur. Her entire income relies on her social media presence. That could dry up one day. If every app were to go poof, what would happen then? You know, I think we have to evaluate that we're all in different positions, stages, and places in life, and there is no single one place or stage that is any better or worse than the other. It's just different. I mean, some things are better than the other, because, yeah. But you understand what I'm trying to say. You understand what I'm trying to say. We all choose our hard. Motherhood is hard, period. If you are choosing motherhood, you are choosing for your life to be hard. That is just the reality of the situation. But the choices you make after that can make your experience with motherhood more hard, harder, or less hard. You just ultimately have to choose. And even if you choose right, even if you do all of the things correctly, life, listen, we make plans and God laughs, okay? We make all the plans of the world and God really be like Usher, like, watch this. So even if you sit there and plan everything, life can just throw a wrench in everything. Even if you sit there and plan everything to a T, life comes at you fast, okay? Life comes at you very fast. So choose your hard and stop looking at the grass on other people's side, because we sit here and we think the grass is greener and we have no idea what anybody else is going through, what they are experiencing. And I think also you need to have something outside of motherhood, because while motherhood is hard, I am sure that I know that there are women who feel fulfilled in motherhood, but they also find fulfillment in their careers, in their 9-to-5s, what they do. And just the same way those women find fulfillment in their 9-to-5s are the same way working moms or stay-at-home moms, they're still working and they find fulfillment in homemaking, being home for their kids, being able to cook for their kids, being able to show up in that capacity as a mom. They feel like that is their life's calling, that is their life's work. You have to find your fulfillment somewhere outside of motherhood, because motherhood can be so all-encompassing. Like, I was talking to my sister and she was like, my niece is going to be 4 in December. And she was like, I didn't even feel like myself until she was 2. Meanwhile, my brother-in-law's back at it, doing his hobbies, doing what he wants to do. And that's the case. And my brother-in-law is great, okay? He is a great, active, present father. Let's be very clear. And I think that when I look at women who are having more positive experiences with motherhood, that's often another common thread that I see. Their husbands, the child's father, the children's father, is engaged and he is an active parent, and they are able to have hobbies and find fulfillment outside of motherhood. So motherhood can be all-encompassing, but this is also why it is so important to practice discernment when it comes to the man you allow to impregnate you, because who you get pregnant by, not who you marry, not where you go to school, none of those things, but who you allow to get you pregnant, who you have a child with, is the most important decision you will ever make in your entire life. It quite literally impacts your legacy, not just your child's future, but their children's future. So the experience you have with motherhood, yes, it's hard, but if you choose a man who ain't, your experience in motherhood is going to be that much more challenging. So pick a good partner, but also B, find fulfillment in your role outside of motherhood. And don't attach your value or your worth or how good or bad of a mom you are based off of whether you work or not, or the type of work that you're doing. What we do does not automatically assign us value. We have to be more than our careers. To wrap this all up, I saw a comment that summed up my feelings exactly in response to Jayda Wayda's comment, because while it was out of touch, I thought this was the most even and true response to what she said. You would be surprised at what you can do when it is what you have to do because you don't have any other options. Jayda Wayda has the option to hire nannies, to hire help. If she doesn't have a built-in community, she can hire the community that she needs to make it so she doesn't have to worry about getting her child up for school, getting him ready, taking him to school, then taking herself to work. She doesn't have to worry about that because that's not her lived experience. That is not her reality. And she can afford to live a different type of life. She can't fathom doing that because she doesn't have to. But for millions of moms across America, that is what they have to do in order to provide for their families, provide for their children, keep a roof over their children's head, keep food on their table. That is what they have to do. They have to wake up in the morning, get their kid ready for school, get themselves ready to school, drop their kid off at school, or make sure their kid gets on the bus, and then get themselves to work, and then stay in that 9-to-5 environment, go home, go to sleep, wake up, and do it all over again. That's just what they have to do because that is their reality. That is their lived experience. They can't fathom any differently. So when it's your reality, when it's your lived experience and somebody is coming to you, somebody with a lot of money, somebody who's never had to work a traditional 9-to-5 before is looking at you and it's like, wow, that's so hard. I can't even imagine having to do that because I take like 2 hours every day to get ready. If you're not grounded and rooted in who you are as a person and the choices that you have made, you're going to find that annoying. But if you're like, oh, that's just her life, you're going to laugh at it, keep it moving, and call it a day. At least that's what I did. When I saw it, I was like, yeah, you probably can't relate. And if I have children, I want to be able to not relate too because I don't want to be going to a 9-to-5. Like I said, I could do it. And I experienced it growing up in a household with 7 children, but I don't want to do it. I'm a morning person and I still do not want to fathom waking up at 4 or 5 in the morning to get my kid ready for school. Then I got to get ready for work. Then I got to take them to school. Then I got to go to work. I don't want to do that. I honestly feel like we have created this reality. God gave us this planet for free. He gave us water. He gave us land. He gave us all of these things. And we created capitalism. We have created this trap for ourselves, this normalized dysfunction. We've created it for ourselves. Of course we're unhappy. Of course somebody would look at that video and get pissed off because the conditions that we live in now, they're not normal. They're not normal. I will scream this from the top of my lungs. It's not normal. And anybody who can break out of this freaking matrix and create a life for themselves where they can't fathom that as their reality, good for them. I want that for everybody. I want that for all the working moms. Even if you are a corporate baddie and you're trying to work your way up that career ladder, I want you to be able to wake up, take your kid to school, then come back, go to the gym, take a nap, take an hour to get ready, and then go to work feeling refreshed. I want that for everybody. I want for every working mom to not be able to fathom the reality that so many working moms live in because it's abnormal. We have normalized a great degree of dysfunction, and it's crazy that we think that this is okay. And then now you put creating a life on top of this and trying to usher that life into adulthood and raise someone with morals and is just a good human being. a good citizen of the world, it's hard. It's hard. So while I understand being annoyed at Jayda Wayda for just being like out of touch and being like, I can't relate to that, because sometimes we are annoyed at people who are like, gee whiz, I can't relate to being an average, regular working person whose life sucks. Like, I'm not speaking for myself. I love my life. My life doesn't suck. But for many people, that's just the reality, and it does suck because nobody wants that. Nobody wants to be waking up that early and doing that. Some of y'all want that. And I love that for you. But there are a lot of people who don't want that. But instead of being mad at Jayda Wayda, you got two options. I mean, you can be mad at Jayda Wayda if you want. You know, some people like being angry. Some people like displacing their anger onto other people. More power to you. But if you're not one of those people, a much better use of your energy, instead of getting mad at Jayda Wayda, we blame capitalism. Put the blame squarely where it is, with capitalism and patriarchy. And then B, since we are insistent on upholding patriarchy and capitalism, we then gotta find a better way to exist in this paradigm, to exist in this reality, and make it so that someday it's not your reality. And listen, maybe you don't make any changes, but kids get older. So in 18 years, it won't be your reality. Or depending on how old your kid is, in 10 years, it won't be your reality. And then also, I think this is like an elementary age problem, right? Because once your kids get to like thinking about myself when my parents had to stop really like setting my alarm and waking me up and getting me ready, I think I was like up and doing these things by middle school. Like definitely before middle school, but I would say like 6th grade. Yeah, about like 11, so like 5th or 6th grade. By 11 or 12 years old, I was mostly self-sufficient and doing a lot for myself. My parents didn't need to like really wake me up, but it's also because there were so many younger kids at my parents. I just grew up a little bit faster. I had to be responsible, not only for myself, but also my younger siblings. But for the most part, if you only have one kid, by the time they're 10, 11, 12, they should be able to get up and shower themselves, because y'all need to be showering every morning. Or maybe I'll accept, showering the night before. Hey, whatever works in your home, as long as your kid showers every day. But, you shower in the morning. They shower themselves. They make sure their book bags are packed. They can pack their lunch. I understand those elementary aged years are hard. Those seems to be the trench years. Once you make it out of those trench years, I'm not saying you're good to go, you're golden, but it becomes a little less challenging, a little less difficult. At least that is my understanding now that I have friends whose kids are starting to get to that age where they're 10, 11, 12 years old. One of them, her kid, is going to graduate high school next year, which is crazy. That is crazy to think about. We are getting old. Oh my God. But anyways, to wrap this up, I know that there is a wave of influencers. I think it's diminished as a lot of influencers and content creators. We're trying to find ways to diversify our income. Some people going back to 9 to 5s. So you see less of this, but there was a time where we did see a lot of content creators and influencers on people with 9 to 5s, and that really sucks. I think that's like very condescending too, especially since a lot of these content creators and influencers are selling whatever, lashes, hair. Jayda Wayda sells hair. I think I saw recently she came out with a makeup line. I think she had a clothes line for a minute. So yeah, you have all of these like influencers who are trying to sell you things, and their audience, their primary demographic and audience are going to be people who work 9 to 5. So how you going on people who work 9 to 5s when these people are the ones making it so you don't have to work a 9 to 5, that you can be an entrepreneur? Like, it's a little brain dead. Like, stop doing that. I don't think we see that as much anymore, but I can definitely see this frustration when you see a video of somebody talking like that. I just could never understand how anybody could work a 9 to 5 or do this, and that's your reality. However, like I said, when you're grounded and rooted in your choices, somebody else's commentary about your choices really it's not going to bother you one way or the other. It's not going to move you one way or the other. At least it's not going to impact how you feel about you. It's not going to dictate how you move differently in the future. You just understand that that person's opinion is just that. It's just their opinion. I think it's a little out of touch, yes. However, like I said, Jayda Wayda has very likely never had an internship. I don't believe she went to college. I don't think she's ever worked a 9 to 5. I don't think she's ever stepped foot in a corporate environment outside of her being an entrepreneur. So of course, she doesn't know what it's like to wake up in the morning, as far as working a traditional job where you wake up in the morning, you go there, you're there for 8 to 9 hours a day, you commute back home. I don't think she's used to that type of life. I think that also is people who are used to making time move around them. And the vast majority of people, they're living in the exact opposite reality where they are trying to move and work around time. And time poverty, I think that's the worst. Like, honestly, I always say if I could just buy an extra 2 hours in the day, it would be life-changing. I would get so much more done. And I think that's the reality of so many people when you are not able to set your own schedule to a certain extent. So when you are talking to someone who is able to set their own schedule, of course, they're going to sound unrelatable. However, if you're frustrated about that, the issue isn't the fact that she is living a different life than you. The issue, the truth of the reality is that capitalism is what forces us to have to make certain decisions that go against nature, that goes against family, that goes against motherhood above all else. So for the working moms, if you were upset, frustrated, offended by Jayda's comment, found it inconceivable because it is your reality, your issue is not with Jayda Wayda. It is with capitalism that is robbing us of time. But more specifically, it is negatively impacting your experience with motherhood, robbing you of time with your child, and ultimately shaping your experience with motherhood. Honestly, that sucks. And even though I don't have kids, I get it. I truly get it in a different capacity. However, that has nothing to do with Jayda Wayda and everything to do with the normalized dysfunction we have created around work. And ultimately, it's on us to fix it and to push back against it. Until then, build your communities, and working moms, just like Jayda said, I am truly in awe of you. You have my admiration, you have my support, and I hope y'all find your villages and your communities because we need it now more than ever. Drop down in the comments, let me know your thoughts. Did you see what Jayda Wayda said before this video? What were your thoughts about it? Do you think people were overreacting? Were you annoyed about it? And this video kind of gave you a reality check? Let me know. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and until next time, peace out.